The explosion tore through the maintenance deck with the force of a small meteor, sending molten metal and superheated gas through the corridor where Grant Jameson had been running diagnostics on the ship's auxiliary power couplings. He barely had time to register the warning klaxon before the shockwave hit him, throwing him against the bulkhead. Searing pain tore across his abdomen as a jagged piece of metal sliced through his environment suit and deep into his flesh. "Man down on deck 7, someone shouted over the comms. "Medical emergency." Grant tried to push himself up but collapsed as fire spread through his midsection. Warm blood soaked his undersuit, and when he looked down, he could see the extent of the damage, a gash at least 10 inches long that had torn open his abdomen. The pain was blinding, and black spots danced at the edges of his vision. "Stay with us, Jameson," came another voice. It was Rodriguez, the engineering chief. "Medical's on their way. Don't try to move." Grant's head swam as he pressed his hands against the wound, trying to hold himself together. The Intrepid was the first human vessel to join the Galactic Alliance's deep space exploration fleet, and they were 3 months into their mission, currently docked at Way Station Epsilon, an enormous hub teeming with species from across known space. The last thing Grant remembered before losing consciousness was the peculiar sight of 3 sets of multi-jointed limbs reaching for him and the concerned clicks and whistles of the station's medical team as they loaded him onto a hovering stretcher. He awoke to a symphony of beeping machines and the distinct antiseptic smell that seemed universal to medical facilities across the galaxy. Opening his eyes, Grant found himself in a sterile white room surrounded by equipment that looked both familiar and alien. A translucent tube ran from his arm to a bag filled with slightly blue-tinged fluid. "The human regains consciousness," came a melodic, slightly synthesized voice. Grant turned his head slowly to see a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and large, reflective eyes staring at him. The alien's head was hairless, with a slight crest running from the center of its forehead to the back of its elongated skull. It wore what looked like a cross between a lab coat and a formal robe, with various instruments attached to a belt around its narrow waist. "I am Dr. Zakira," the alien said, touching a 6-fingered hand to its chest. "Lead trauma specialist at Epsilon Medical Center. You have suffered significant abdominal trauma." Grant tried to speak, but found his throat dry and scratchy. A second alien, shorter with mottled green skin, approached and held a cup with a straw to his lips. The water tasted slightly metallic, but was refreshing. "Thank you," Grant managed. "How bad is it?" Dr. Zakira consulted a holographic display that hovered above a small device in its hand. "The laceration penetrated your abdominal wall, damaged a portion of your small intestine, and nicked your liver. We have repaired the damage using a combination of our techniques and protocols provided by your ship's medical database for human physiology." Grant attempted to sit up, wincing at the dull ache that radiated from his midsection. "When can I get back to my ship?" The green alien made a sound like water bubbling through pipes, which the translation device interpreted as laughter. "Humans truly are impatient creatures." "Rest assured, Engineer Jameson," Dr. Zakira said, "you will not be returning to duty soon. Such injuries require extended recovery time. We estimate at least 48 standard cycles before you can be moved from intensive care, and another 20 before you can consider light duties." That seemed excessive to Grant. He'd seen worse injuries treated in a fraction of the time aboard Earth's orbital stations. "That long? Our medical bay could have me up in a week with this kind of injury." Dr. Zakira's large eyes blinked slowly. "Perhaps human medicine is more primitive than we understood. Rushing recovery leads to complications. The wound must heal naturally after our intervention." Grant didn't argue. He wasn't a doctor, and he was in no position to question the aliens who had just saved his life. Instead, he nodded and let his head fall back against the pillow. "Your Captain Erickson has been informed of your condition," the green alien said. "She will visit once you are stabilized." Over the next few hours, Grant drifted in and out of sleep. When he was awake, he studied the medical facility around him. It was more advanced than anything he'd seen on Earth, with holographic displays that showed real-time views of patients' internal systems and robots that moved seamlessly around the room, adjusting equipment and administering medications. When Captain Olivia Erickson finally appeared, her face showed both relief and concern. She was a tall, commanding woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen more of the universe than most humans ever would. "Jameson," she said, approaching his bed. "Good to see you awake. The station commander sends his regards and assures me you're receiving their best care." "Captain," Grant nodded, trying to sit up straighter. "Any word on what caused the explosion?" "Power surge in the secondary coupling. The diagnostics you were running actually prevented a much larger catastrophe." She paused, looking him over. "The aliens are impressed you survived. Apparently, the kind of injury you sustained is often fatal to several species in the Alliance." Grant managed a weak smile. "Humans are tough, I guess." "That we are," she agreed. "But follow their instructions. We need you back at full strength, not rushing your recovery and causing more problems." "Yes, madam," Grant replied, though he was already calculating how quickly he could get back to the Intrepid once the worst had passed. Captain Erickson left after a brief update on the ship's repairs, promising to check on him regularly. As the day cycled into what passed for night on the station, the lighting in the medical bay dimmed, and Grant found himself alone with his thoughts and the occasional visit from a medical drone. By the third day, Grant was restless. The pain had subsided considerably, and he was able to sit up and even stand briefly with assistance. Dr. Zakira and the green alien, whom he now knew was named Plex, a medical apprentice, seemed perplexed by his progress. "Your tissue shows remarkable cellular activity," Dr. Zakira said during a morning examination. "The rate of healing is unexpected." "Is that a problem?" Grant asked. Plex made a gesture with its three-fingered hands that the translation device didn't interpret. "It is unusual. Most species we treat require considerably more time to show such improvement." "Maybe you underestimated how quickly humans heal," Grant suggested. Dr. Zakira's head tilted in what might have been the equivalent of a frown. "Perhaps. We will adjust our treatment protocol accordingly." That afternoon, Grant received a visit from the ship's medical officer, Dr. Sarah Chen. She brought with her a small device that she handed to Grant discreetly. "Cellular regenerator," she whispered, "standard issue in our emergency kits. It should speed up your healing even more, though try not to make it too obvious to our hosts. They seem a bit traditional in their approach." Grant nodded, slipping the device under his blanket. "Thanks, Doc. How are things on the ship?" "Repairs are going well. Everyone's eager to have you back." She glanced around to make sure they weren't being overheard. "The Alliance doctors are excellent, but they're used to treating species that heal much slower than humans. Use the regenerator when you're alone. It'll help with internal healing especially." After Dr. Chen left, Grant waited until the medical bay was quiet before activating the small disc-shaped device. A warm sensation spread through his abdomen as the regenerator accelerated his body's natural healing process. He used it 3 times that day, careful to deactivate it whenever anyone approached. On the 5th day, Dr. Zakira arrived with 2 other aliens Grant hadn't seen before. One was tall with gray, stone-like skin and no visible eyes, while the other was shorter with multiple stalks protruding from its head, each ending in a small sensory organ. "These are Drs. Vorn and Tislik," Dr. Zakira introduced them. "They are specialists in xenobiology and have asked to observe your case." "My case?" Grant asked, suddenly feeling like a lab specimen. "Your recovery rate has attracted attention," Dr. Zakira explained. "It is unprecedented in our experience." Dr. Vorn, the stone-like alien, spoke in a rumbling voice that made the translation device vibrate. "We have treated 17 different sentient species at this facility. None heal with such rapidity, especially from traumatic abdominal injuries." Dr. Tislik's sensory stalks waved slightly. "We wish to understand if this is common among all humans, or if you represent an anomaly." Grant shifted uncomfortably. aware of the regenerator hidden beneath his pillow. "I'm nothing special. Humans just heal quickly compared to some species. The medical database provided by your ship indicates normal human recovery times that are significantly longer than what you are demonstrating," Dr. Zakira countered. Grant realized they had caught on to the discrepancy. "Maybe I'm just lucky," he offered weakly. The three alien doctors exchanged looks that Grant couldn't interpret. Finally, Dr. Zakira said, "We would like to perform additional scans to better understand your physiology. With your permission, of course." Grant knew refusing would only make them more suspicious. "Of course," he agreed, hoping they wouldn't discover the regenerator or its effects. The scans took several hours, during which Grant was moved to different imaging devices, each more sophisticated than the last. The alien doctors spoke among themselves in their native languages, occasionally glancing at him with what he interpreted as confusion or surprise. When they returned him to his room, Grant immediately checked for the regenerator, relieved to find it still hidden in his bedding. That night, he used it again, knowing he was taking a risk but eager to get back to the Intrepid as soon as possible. On the seventh day, a small delegation from the Intrepid visited, including Captain Erickson, Dr. Chen, and Chief Engineer Rodriguez. They brought news that the ship's repairs were nearly complete. "How's our patient doing?" Rodriguez asked Dr. Zakira, who had accompanied the humans to Grant's room. "His recovery defies explanation," Dr. Zakira said, with a note that the translator rendered as suspicion. "The wound is healing at nearly triple the rate we would expect, even for a human." Dr. Chen cleared her throat. "Human healing rates can vary significantly between individuals. Grant has always been a quick healer." Grant nodded in agreement, catching Dr. Chen's subtle wink. Captain Erickson changed the subject. "When do you estimate he can return to the ship?" At this rate, Dr. Zakira's large eyes blinked slowly. "Perhaps in another 5 days, but we are concerned about the unusual nature of his recovery. We would like to conduct further studies." "I appreciate your scientific curiosity," Captain Erickson said diplomatically. "But once he's stable enough to travel, we'd prefer to have him back in our medical bay where our doctors are more familiar with human physiology." Grant could sense the tension in the room. The alien doctors clearly suspected something unusual about his recovery, while his crewmates were trying to get him back to the ship before those suspicions led to uncomfortable questions about human medical technology. That evening, after his visitors had left, Dr. Zakira returned with Plex and another medical device. "We would like to take a tissue sample," the doctor explained, "to better understand the cellular mechanisms of your healing process." Grant tensed. A tissue sample might reveal the effects of the regenerator. "Is that necessary? I'm feeling much better, and I'd rather not have any more procedures." "It would be minimally invasive," Plex assured him. "A small sample from the edge of the healing wound." Reluctantly, Grant agreed, knowing that refusing would only increase their suspicions. As they prepared the sampling device, he wondered if he had pushed his luck too far with the regenerator. The following morning, the medical bay was buzzing with activity. Several alien doctors Grant hadn't seen before moved around his room, examining readouts and discussing his case in their native languages. Dr. Zakira approached with a serious expression. "Engineer Jameson, we have discovered something concerning in your tissue sample." The alien doctor's voice was calm but firm. "There are signs of artificial cellular stimulation that cannot be explained by natural human healing processes." Grant's heart sank. They had found evidence of the regenerator's effects. "Furthermore," Dr. Zakira continued, "scans have detected unusual energy signatures around your wound site. We believe you have been using unauthorized medical technology to accelerate your healing." There was no point in denying it now. "It's a standard human medical device," Grant admitted. "A cellular regenerator. Nothing dangerous or experimental." Dr. Zakira's eyes narrowed slightly. "Such technology was not mentioned in the medical protocols shared by your ship." Before Grant could respond, Captain Erickson and Dr. Chen entered the room, accompanied by a tall, official-looking alien with intricate markings on its face that Grant recognized as indicators of high rank within the station's hierarchy. Administrator Kell, Dr. Zakira acknowledged the newcomer with a slight bow. We were just discussing a concerning discovery regarding our human patient. Administrator Kell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. I am aware. Captain Erickson has just informed me of the situation. Captain Erickson stepped forward. I apologize for the confusion. The cellular regenerator is indeed standard human medical technology. Its omission from our shared protocols was an oversight, not an attempt at deception. Dr. Chen nodded. The device accelerates natural healing processes, but doesn't fundamentally alter them. It's been standard in human medicine for nearly 15 years. Administrator Kell turned to Dr. Zakira. Is the technology harmful to the patient? No, Dr. Zakira admitted. In fact, the wound is healing cleanly without signs of infection or complication, but the rate of recovery it challenges our understanding of biological limits. With all due respect, Grant interjected, different species have different healing capabilities. What seems impossible to one might be normal for another. There was a moment of silence as the aliens considered this. Finally, Administrator Kell spoke. Captain Erickson, we would appreciate full disclosure of human medical technologies in the future. Such information is crucial for proper medical care and scientific exchange. Of course, Captain Erickson agreed. We'll update our shared databases immediately. The tension in the room eased somewhat, but Dr. Zakira still seemed troubled. Even with this technology, the rate of healing is remarkable. We would value the opportunity to study it further, with proper protocols in place. Grant exchanged glances with Captain Erickson, who gave a slight nod. I'd be willing to participate in some studies, he said, as long as it doesn't delay my return to duty too much. The aliens seemed satisfied with this compromise. Administrator Kell departed after a few more words with Captain Erickson, while Dr. Zakira and the other medical staff began preparing a formal research proposal. You couldn't have been a bit more subtle with that regenerator? Captain Erickson asked Grant quietly when they had a moment alone. Sorry, Captain. I was just trying to get back to the ship sooner. She shook her head, though there was a hint of amusement in her expression. Next time. Maybe don't heal quite so miraculously. The Alliance is still getting used to humans. No need to shock them with all our peculiarities at once. Over the next 3 days, Grant participated in a series of carefully monitored tests. The alien doctors were fascinated by the combined effects of the cellular regenerator and natural human healing, documenting every stage of his recovery with meticulous detail. Several specialists from other medical facilities on the station came to observe and contribute to the research. By the 10th day, the wound had closed completely, leaving only a thin pink line where the jagged gash had been. The alien doctors gathered around as Grant sat up, removed his medical gown, and showed them the nearly healed scar. Incredible, Dr. Zakira said, examining the scar closely. At this stage, most species would still have an open wound requiring close medical attention. Humans are remarkably resilient, Plex added, its voice containing what the translator rendered as admiration. Dr. Vorn, who had returned to observe the final examination, rumbled, In my 300 cycles as a trauma specialist, I have never witnessed such rapid tissue regeneration, not even among the Valaxians, who are known for their healing abilities. Does this mean I can return to my ship? Grant asked hopefully. The alien doctors exchanged glances before Dr. Zakira nodded. Your wound has healed sufficiently for transfer. However, we recommend another 10 days of limited activity before returning to full duties. Grant smiled. 10 days was much better than the original estimate of nearly 70. I can live with that. Later that day, as Dr. Chen helped him pack the few belongings he had accumulated during his stay, she spoke in a low voice. You've caused quite a stir in the station's scientific community. They're already talking about collaborative research projects to study human healing responses. Sorry about that, Grant said. I didn't mean to become a medical curiosity. Don't be sorry, she replied. This kind of exchange is exactly why we joined the Alliance. They learn from us. We learn from them. Your impatience might have accidentally advanced interspecies medical cooperation by years. When Grant finally walked back onto the Intrepid, supported by Dr. Chen but moving under his own power, the crew greeted him with cheers and good-natured jokes about his new fame among the alien doctors. Chief Engineer Rodriguez clapped him carefully on the shoulder. Next time you decide to get yourself sliced open to impress the aliens, give me a heads up so I can sell tickets. Grant laughed, then winced slightly as the motion pulled at his healing tissues. I think one interstellar medical incident is enough for my career. Captain Erickson welcomed him back with a formal handshake and a less formal smile. Glad to have you back, Jameson. Your quarters have been prepared, and Dr. Chen will be monitoring your recovery for the next week. Thank you, Captain, Grant replied, and thank you for smoothing things over with the station administration. That's part of my job, she said, though I've had to agree to allow a small team of Alliance medical researchers to visit the Intrepid next month to continue studying human healing processes. I hope you don't mind being their primary subject. Grant sighed, but nodded his agreement. It was a small price to pay for the care he had received and the diplomatic incident he had nearly caused. As the Intrepid prepared to depart Way Station Epsilon, Grant stood at a viewport watching the massive structure slowly recede. Doctors Kira and Plex had come to see him off, fascinated by the human ship and eager for one last chance to check his healing wound. You have given us much to think about, Engineer Jameson, Dr. Zakira had said during the farewell. Perhaps our understanding of biological limits has been too constrained by our own experiences. That's the beauty of the Alliance, Grant had replied. We all have something to teach each other. Now, as the stars began to streak past the viewport and the Intrepid continued its mission of exploration, Grant reflected on his experience. The pain and danger had been real, but so had the discovery and connection that followed. In showing the aliens his rapidly closing scar, he had opened a new chapter in interspecies medical cooperation. Dr. Chen joined him at the viewport. How are you feeling? Better than I should be, according to our alien friends, Grant replied with a smile. They're not entirely wrong, she said. The combination of the regenerator and your particularly robust healing response was exceptional. We're still analyzing the data they shared. Grant nodded, watching the stars blur as the ship accelerated. What do you think they'll find when they study humans more closely? That we're more different and more similar than they imagined, Dr. Chen replied, just as we discover about every new species we encounter. Over the following weeks, as the Intrepid continued its journey through Alliance space, Grant's wound healed completely, leaving only a faint white line across his abdomen. He returned to full duty ahead of schedule, much to the amusement of his crewmates who had taken to calling him Miracle Man after word of his exceptional recovery spread throughout the ship. 6 months later, the Intrepid docked at another Alliance facility for scheduled maintenance. Grant was surprised to find Dr. Zakira waiting when he disembarked, now wearing the insignia of the Alliance Medical Exchange Program. Engineer Jameson, the alien doctor greeted him warmly. It is good to see you again. Dr. Zakira, Grant replied, genuinely pleased to see the alien who had saved his life. What brings you here? Your case inspired a new research initiative, Dr. Zakira explained, walking alongside Grant as they entered the station. The Alliance has established a cross-species medical response team to study healing mechanisms across all member races. I am now leading the Trauma Recovery Division. That's wonderful, Grant said. All because you didn't believe how fast I could heal. Dr. Zakira made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. Sometimes the greatest discoveries come from our moments of disbelief. Would you be willing to participate in a follow-up study? We have developed new techniques based on what we learned from you that could benefit numerous species. Grant thought about the scar on his abdomen, now barely visible but representing a moment of crisis that had turned into an opportunity for understanding. "I'd be honored," he said. "After all, we're all still learning about each other." As they walked through the bustling station, surrounded by beings from dozens of worlds, Grant felt a sense of purpose. His injury had been painful and frightening, but it had also created a bridge between different biological understandings. In the vast expanse of space, with all its dangers and wonders, perhaps their greatest strength was not how quickly they could heal, but how willing they were to share what they learned along the way. The research that began with Grant's unexpectedly rapid recovery eventually led to breakthroughs in cross-species medical treatments. Technologies adapted from human regenerators were modified to work with the physiologies of other Alliance members, while techniques from alien medicine enhanced human treatments for certain conditions. Years later, when Grant visited Earth on leave, he showed his young nephew the faint scar that had once been a life-threatening wound. "This," he explained, "is how I accidentally became part of Alliance medical history." The boy looked unimpressed. "It's just a line," Grant smiled. "Sometimes the smallest things can lead to the biggest changes. That's what exploration is all about, finding the unexpected and learning from it." And across the Alliance, in medical facilities, on stations and planets and ships traveling between the stars, the lesson of the human who healed too quickly continued to inspire new questions and new discoveries, proving that even in a universe of countless differences, the desire to heal and the wonder of discovery were truly universal.